The Submariner throws a tantrum and takes half of New York with him. Today on Comicology. The Submariner is an easy character to write for. Do you want to know why? Motivation. It's important to note that even in the early days of Marvel, where these comics take place, the writers and editors were already experimenting with the concept of continuity, crossover, and the overarching narrative. Much like how the Human Torch is on an endless quest to overcome his tragic origins and use his powers for the greater good, the Submariner is also on a quest to destroy humanity. I mean, for the safety of his people. As established in Marvel Comics #1, the Submariner begun his war on humanity, and as far as Marvel Comics #2 is concerned, the story is essentially continued here. The Submariner, more than any other Marvel hero in the Golden Age, has a continuous storyline, as you're about to see now. The story starts immediately where the previous one left off, with the Submariner leaping from the stolen plane and landing into the sea off the coast of Manhattan. He finds himself at the harbor where he begins to investigate human activity when suddenly he can feel himself being moved by the currents. He is dragged under the water where he gets stuck into a pipe. Using his tremendous strength, he bursts through the side of the pipe and explodes out the other end like a geyser of water. All these workmen are shocked to death at the sight of him. The prince lands on some girders on the ceiling, and the workmen have no idea how to respond. For a moment, they stare each other down, and suddenly the Submariner makes a vicious attack by ripping off the girders and throwing them at the humans. I want to take a moment and point out the fact that in these first 3 pages, the Human Torch hasn't spoken a word, and there is a very good reason for that. Understand that this is more or less the first time that the Human Torch has really been in human territory. He doesn't understand anything. And try and view this story from that perspective. It helps make more sense of it. He's completely foreign. He has no idea about anything. None of our customs or cultures make any sense to him. And one of the main reasons why he's here is to learn. He escapes from the powerhouse, but he is famished. He tries to find the source of water and discovers a small pond in a nearby park. He lands for a rest when a policeman spots him and sounds his whistle. Immediately, the policemen engage Submariner, but he isn't even bothered by it. They pursue him in a boat, but he just tips it over and flies off, leaving him in the pond looking like a couple of idiots. Next, the Submariner visits the sewers, where he comes across a tramp who lives there. He then speaks his first words on the issue. He demands the tramp remove his clothes so he can use them as a disguise. The tramp of course obliges, and the Submariner rises to the street with his raggedy new getup. You see, here's the thing. When the Submariner tells you to get naked, the truth is you just don't have a choice. Immediately he discovers that this outfit isn't fit for the public eye, and he rushes off to find something new. He discovers a house where a butler who may or may not be dressed in blackface denies him entry, but the maiden of the house allows it. Then, suddenly she's on fire. Okay, so the book explains that she's smoking a cigarette which touched her dress, which combusted. I don't really see how that would happen. It seems entirely random, and I don't personally buy it, but suspension of disbelief? The Submariner grabs her, and then using his amphibian physiology, he explodes water, and she is saved, but not before being horribly burnt. She needs a doctor, but the Submariner refuses to be discovered. He wraps himself in a silk sheet and makes his escape. Outside, they are wheeling the girl in an ambulance. The prince is leaving, but then he has a change of heart and decides to follow her to the hospital by riding on top of the ambulance. His plan now is to kidnap the girl, which he has become immediately infatuated with. He breaks into the hospital and assaults the doctors. Then he grabs the girl and leaps off with her without considering that she's human and absolutely cannot live under the sea. And that's not my opinion. The book says that. It's literally captioned in the story that the submariner's actions here are completely illogical. He makes it to the sea just before the police arrive. They try to shoot him with their guns, but then he just wallops on them. They are just absolutely no threat. The story ends with the prince trying to take the girl into the ocean with him, but at the last moment, the police are heroically able to rescue her away and bring her back to the surface. The submariner, however, stays below, and we're given a teaser for the next issue. So, this is the submariner's first time in New York. I think that's worth noting. New York is a concrete metropolis. It's the perfect setting for this character because it is the perfect symbol of all of mankind's industriousness. It serves as a perfect place for the submariner to sort of dismantle society and just genuinely be a nuisance. I find it strange, though, that his goal was to kidnap the girl. Maybe not at first, but it became kidnapping the girl. It is true that it was a common trope at the time that monsters would kidnap women. We saw this in King Kong, and we saw it in a lot of the Universal monster films, specifically The Creature from the Black Lagoon. I believe the Submariner qualifies as a monster, specifically in this story. He's treated like one, but I just don't feel that kidnapping a human girl would fall in with his motivations of destroying humanity. I don't see that as a stepping stone. I see that as a huge distraction. Plus, wouldn't he find her disgusting? So it's sudden. It's a sudden switch in motivation. The Human Torch is infatuated with human females. And this went on to become a tremendous part of the character, all the way up into his run with the Fantastic Four, in which he would immediately become infatuated with and try and elope with the Invisible Woman against her will. Yeah, he learned nothing from this experience. In fact, he would try it again in other issues. But other than that, I actually really like this story. You get to see the Submariner slowly sort of infiltrating New York and sort of learning everything about us, and then just sort of escaping. It's really fast, it's really fun, it's full of chaos and interesting ideas. It's a very enjoyable experience. Anyway, that's going to do it for me for today. Thank you so much for reading this comic with me. If you liked reading this comic with me, go ahead and subscribe so we can read some more together. And if you want to, go ahead and follow me on Facebook because that's where you're going to learn about all the other projects that I'm working on outside of YouTube. This is Heroic Nerd reminding you that human women cannot make undersea brides.